I've got 7:01, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Nice to see everyone. It's been a couple of weeks. Hope you're all doing well tonight. The first item on the agenda is to look at the minutes that Josh sent out, and we'll approve those. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting on the 21st?
I, Cleona Mainville, approve. Oh, I, Cleona Mainville, approve the minutes from the previous.
You want to make a
meeting.
motion?
Oh, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Steve Purcell, second.
All righty. Any discussion?
Did we lose Ed?
I think we might have lost Ed. Unless you can hold that face for that long.
Oh, I don't even see his video, so you know.
Leonie, if you want to continue the motion, we can get it passed with Ed was rejoining if you want.
I, Cleona Mainville, approve the minutes.
No, I mean you can call vote as the vice chair.
I can call a vote.
Yeah, so this motion requires a vote to pass.
So what do you want me to say?
But you can ask me for the roll call vote for the minute.
Oh, can you do the roll call vote?
Sorry,
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Josh.
sorry, what was that?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. We'll just do it real quick, Leonie.
I didn't catch that, Josh. Say again.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
I was just going to start with the roll call and start with Leonie.
Josh keeps breaking up.
Or Cleone, he's starting the roll call and he called you first.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Steve.
All right, it looks like we got Ed back. So Ed,
Edson.
We left.
Yes,
we left
sorry
off
about
that
that.
vote.
My internet went down. Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you for the excellent job you do with the minutes. We appreciate that greatly. Hi, Scott. Nice to see you.
Oh, same here.
Okay, next item is public comment. I don't see that we have anyone on from the public, but I'll ask, is there anyone on that would like to comment? Okay. We will move next to old business. We've got a few items here. Can someone's got some noise in the background. Can you just stay on mute? That'd be great. First item is the citizen survey, and it says personal interview update. That was my error because we have another item specifically to talk about that. So if we could just kind of get a final update from the subcommittee on the citizen survey. I know there was a few, I think Liz was one outstanding item that you guys want to work on and finalize that. So somebody want to speak to that?
Sure. So it's Tom. We had a meeting last week and approved a presentation for next week at the town council meeting, I think is the goal. So that's set and ready to go. We had the subcommittee on it and approved it. Ed, I don't know if you want to share it with the whole group right now, or if we're just good with it. But that was our big item.
Okay, so the prezo you've got done so the survey is completed, you've got everything summarized and the results are all presented in that deck, right?
Yep. So that's it's first in the workbook. And then we made it pretty and put it in the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, nice. So the town council meeting is actually, we are going to be on the 24th.
Okay.
So we have plenty of time. So one of the things I thought we might do is at our next meeting, which we have on the 18th, maybe we can just run through it as a group, just so everyone's familiar with it. That's
So
okay?
that is fine. I will say, so the 24th, I am unsure I will be able to do that, so we should address that as a subcommittee. My wife has a conflicting meeting that day with the library trustees, so.
Okay. Okay, well, if Steve or Cleone would like to take your place in delivering that, that's fine. Otherwise, we can look at another option as well.
Okay,
So
and
do you wanna-
I'll look at childcare. Well, the three of us will figure that out outside of this.
Okay, so we'll plan on our next meeting, which is the 18th, to go through it as a group here and sort of approve it, I guess, okay, if that's all right.
Yep.
Great. All right, thank you guys for doing that. Appreciate it. Next item is the town council update, which I said is the 24th, Tuesday, the 24th. So in addition to the survey information, Tom, that is in that deck that you guys developed, I think there's probably a few other things we want to add in there. So maybe you and I can talk offline before the 18th, and I might want to add a slide or two to talk about our schedule and, you know, any other key items that we've completed that we want to make them aware of.
Yeah, I mean, easy add.
All right, great. Item number 3, the personnel interview questionnaire. So as we discussed at our last meeting, we approved that on the 21st. I sent it out on the next day, the 22nd, to the list of key personnel with a request to get that back by this Friday, November 6th. So far, I've only received 2 responses, which is a little disappointing, but I know, you know, they're all extremely very busy. So I did send an email to Mike Dutton, I think over the weekend, asking him if he could, you know, have a gentle reminder sent out to the list that I sent, asking if they could, you know, if at all possible, get it back to me by next Friday or as soon as possible afterwards. So I'll check in with him, you know, either close the business on Friday or Monday to find out, you know, who's outstanding and what we can do to speed it along. But it is what it is right now.
If we have, continue to have a small participation, can we consider disseminating it to the subordinates of those head of the departments?
I think we can consider that. We can certainly talk about that. I just don't know if the response is going to be similar from anyone in the town government. It may change the lower you go in the chain, but we can certainly see. I think I'd like to ask Mike about that too. See if he's okay with that. So let's wait and see how we end up on Friday and see how, you know, what kind of response rate I get. I can tell you the 2 that I got back were filled out completely. So we got some good information, at least on those 2. Okay, any other questions on the personnel interview questionnaire?
What departments do we hear back from?
We heard from the town clerk and the director of community development, Jennifer Burke and Marilee Hunt. Both of them, by the way, requested that we keep their responses anonymous, and I can understand why that is. So what I've done is I've created a spreadsheet with all the questions listed on the left side of the spreadsheet, and across the top, I've got response number 1, response number 2, response number 3, so on. There's 21 responses, and I've just populated each of the cells without the names of the people, so that as we talk about it, you know, we'll try and keep that as anonymous as we can. Okay, that's it for old business. Moving on to new business, we have the charter review that we had discussed, Articles 1 and 2. So I think what I'd like to do to start the discussion on this is first look at the decision matrix. I'm going to share my screen. I have this up here. Why isn't sharing my screen working? There we go. Can you all see that? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So as we start, I just want to say that, we know that we have a bunch of editorial, language clarifications throughout the whole charter that were made by both the CRC and the Rules and Procedures Committee. Some of those are spelling, some of those are, hyphenating, capitalizing, different things like that. So as we start to look through the two versions of the charter, we'll start to see a lot of those. And then what we can do is basically say, do we agree or disagree with those changes? I think most of them we're going to agree on because they just provide additional clarification. If I scroll down a little bit here, you'll see that, I don't know why it's not scrolling. Okay. Under Article, I don't think we have anything specific to Article 1. I think we do just one item here, row 7, which was the glossary or the definitions. That was the first major piece in Article 1 that both groups started to make changes to. And that's, as I'm sure as you started to look at that, you saw that at the very beginning. So that was the major piece. Other than the definitions, most of them are grammatical changes. There's a few minor things that you'll see as we go through it. But that's really it for Article 1. And then as we get into Article 2, you're going to see more and more changes come forth. Hopefully, we should be able to get through Article 1 tonight pretty easily and maybe even start Article 2. I've been thinking about the best way to do this. Are you guys comfortable with having me just kind of walk through it and open the dialogue as you want to talk? Just raise your hand or let me know. It's always a challenge with Zoom to try and do this. I've got both documents laid out on my desk here that I'm going to be looking at. So any specific suggestions on how we might want to guide this dialogue other than having me start to walk through it?
I like your idea. And if you lead it and then we chime in as needed, it might make it easier.
Okay. All right, let me ask this question. Has everybody had a chance to look at those two documents?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so let's dig in. So the first item that we come across as we look at both documents is the section on definitions. The first thing you'll see is that the CRC, let me just say that the original charter had the definitions embedded in Article 1 at the very bottom. So it was, I forget what the section number was, maybe 12 or something like that. So they pulled the whole section of definitions out and they actually put it in front of Article 1 in the charter. So that's the first thing that they did. And then they went in and started, tweaking the definitions. The Rules and Procedures Committee did the same thing. They moved it, except they moved it at the beginning inside Article 1. Now, we don't know why they did that, obviously, because we haven't had a conversation with them on it. There might be a legal reason for why they had to do that. I don't know if they actually did it on their own or whether they had the attorney told them they had to do it. At this point, I don't know.
And Ed, this brings up a point when we talked about the matrix and I wanted to capture the rationale behind recommendations. And we kind of talked about having that second page. It is to kind of record why we're making recommendations because of exactly what you're saying. We don't know why they moved it. And now this probably requires a conversation versus capturing it in that document, the matrix.
Yeah, right. So I think in terms of, well, let me just ask this question. Do we as a committee feel, assuming there's no legal issue, do we as a committee feel there's any benefit or no benefit to having it either in Article 1 or outside of Article 1? Does anyone have a preference on that?
I don't.
Doesn't see any
Hiding
reason
another
why the
part.
definitions can't be outside of Article 1, unless it's supposed to be part of Article 1.
Okay,
Is it like a standard? I would think they would be outside of the Article 1.
Right.
right. So I mean, we can recommend whatever we want to recommend. So Scott, I know you have any opinion on this, having a law background at this point? Do you think there's any legal requirement that would put the definitions in a specific article or not?
I don't know of any specific legal requirement. I think from an operational standpoint, when you're looking for the definitions, if you're looking to the table of contents, if we put it outside of Article 1, then what are we going to call that?
Definition.
It just, I mean, formatting wise, if you want it inside of an article or not, it's if it's, I can see down the road, I'm trying to figure, worst case scenario here, somebody being absolutely obtuse and making an argument that the definitions in Article 1 only apply to Article 1 and not to subsequent articles. I mean, you see some ridiculous arguments out there. So I think by pulling it out and having it as a standalone item and, maybe a blurb that says, these are the definitions, for the charter. Yeah, I'm sure, I think there's language in there, if I recall from the charter, that does say something to that effect. And it's a lot cleaner than what I just said, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, it says right at the very beginning, under the word definition, it says, as used in the charter, the following words shall, unless context clearly requires otherwise, have the following meaning. So it says right there, it's for the entire charter.
And
The
it's,
other-
and it's in the table of contents, separate definitions right on top. So,
It is page 4, yes.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
So I think it should be separate.
Yeah, I do too. That's my feeling. I think it stands out at the very beginning. First thing you'd look at is definitions, and it applies throughout the whole charter.
Yeah. And I think like I said, by doing it that way, it eliminates anybody from trying to make an argument that, this only applies to this section or this article. Yeah. No, let's keep that blurb that you just read, pull it out, throw it right at the very beginning. It applies to the whole document.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. So the next question or point I'd like to make, so we've kind of talked about one item now. Do we want to vote on it? How do we want to handle these changes as a committee? Do we want to vote item by item as they come up? And Josh can track that for us?
I think for the definitions, because it's such a separate thing, we can vote on that because that's my
Okay,
opinion.
so are you suggesting, Janet, that we'll go through the entire definition discussion? And then at the end, throughout that discussion, we're going to have dialogue and we're going to say, yeah, we agree, disagree, or we might add our own things in there. At the end, we'll take one vote on the entire definition discussion, or should we take individual votes on each item of discussion?
Each item in definition, you mean?
Yeah, like we just decided we want to keep it outside the article. So should we vote on that one particular thing or just wait and do it at the very end when we have take a final vote on the whole discussion around definitions?
Not sure
I
on
think it
that.
might be hard to group. I think it might be difficult for Josh to group everything because I have a couple of questions and observations just in the admin, and I'm wondering logistically, would it be easier to vote on each item or in the group? So that would be my only concern, logistically, what makes sense.
So I think if we're going to vote on the whole item in one vote, then we're going to have to track all of the items that we agree to, right? So we'll have a list of, this is what we've discussed and agreed to, and then we'll vote on it. Somebody will make a motion to vote on all these items together. We'll bundle it and then make one vote, as opposed to voting on each individual thing. Anybody else want to chime in?
So I would recommend that we vote on moving the definitions, and like anything that we've discussed and we agree on, no, we can vote on that and then move on to something else.
So what you seem to be saying, Darren, is vote on each individual item
Yes.
separately?
Yeah, this way we'll have a point with, a reference point, so that let's say we get to a point where we voted on these different things, we discuss them, and then next time when we meet or when we have time, we can move on to something else and not have to overwhelm ourselves with trying to vote on too much in one discussion.
Okay. I think I agree with you there. It seems to add a little clarity around how we do it. We're just going to be voting a lot. I mean, I could envision right now maybe maybe a dozen or more changes or votes that we'll have to take just on the definitions alone.
Don't forget, we have to vote again at the end of this whole thing, right?
Yeah,
We-
we're going to vote twice.
Because if we bundled, and I'm just talking out loud, right? I don't have a preference right now. If we bundle and we don't all agree on every item that's bundled, then how do we navigate that if we do bundle it and we don't all agree on all the items within the bundle?
Yeah, right. Okay, then from a procedure perspective, it sounds like the group is leaning more towards voting on item by item.
Would we have to vote to have the definition, the title definitions be separate from Article 1 to start with, and then
Yes.
go to each definition,
Yes.
right? So we
Yeah.
have to start with moving it first and then go to each definition, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially every decision that we make, we're saying we're going to vote on separately.
So would we start with moving the definitions out of Article 1?
That would be the first thing we do. I'm just trying to get, consensus that this is what we want to do. So maybe someone might want to make a motion that, that would say, for the purpose of approving changes, recommendations to the charter, that this group will vote on each individual item that is discussed. So if somebody wants to make that motion, we can go further.
I,
Nice.
Thomas Golden, motion for whatever Ed just said.
I'll second that.
Could you just repeat it for me?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is that in terms of this committee's recommendation process, that we will vote on each individual recommendation separately
On Articles 1 and 2?
on every change. So this is the beginning of the process now of looking at the whole charter, that each individual item discussed will be voted on separately. Okay. So Josh, you want to read that back?
Yep, I have Thomas motion to vote that each individual item discussed will be voted on separately.
Okay. Tom, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, was there a second?
I'll second it.
All righty.
Do you want me to add each individual item discussed under the charter review, just so it's pointing to something?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All right, if not, we'll take a roll on that. Josh?
Ed,
Yes.
Leonie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Okay, great. So I guess, we'll find out how this works. I'm, part of me is thinking this could be really cumbersome as we begin to do it, but it seems to be the best process to use at this time. So the first item that we've already discussed is the positioning of the definitions within the charter. And would someone like to make a motion as to the placement of definitions?
I,
Go ahead.
I, Janet,
Jack.
Janet motioned to have the definitions separate from Article 1. Am I saying it right?
Separate, and where do you want to put it?
In the beginning, like it was in the original charter, it's in the table of contents as definitions.
So what the CRC recommended, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Josh, did you get that?
So Janet, I have Janet motion that definitions are separated from Article 1.
Separate and located at the beginning of the charter, in front of Article 1.
Right.
Okay. And was there a second?
Darren Boston, second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Josh, another roll call?
Ed?
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving to the next item here. So it's clear that the CRC took the position that they wanted to add a lot of additional definitions into the charter. I didn't make an actual count, but there's probably a good dozen or so definitions that were added from the original charter. The Rules of Procedure Committee decided to leave many of those out. So I guess what we can do is we can go down and discuss each one of them and see if we, think it makes sense. I think the definitions, should have relevance to specifically what's in the charter. If the definition is going to go in there, it should be something that, adds value, but also is relevant to what's in the charter. It's not necessarily, we don't want to put general terms in there that aren't really used in the charter. So the first thing that I see in there is that the CRC put in there is the difference between administration versus management. So they clarified, it's really, I guess is it a definition or is just a clarification? Administration is the duty or duties of an administrator in exercising the executive functions of the position. Management is the person or persons controlling and directing the affairs of town departments. So do we think that's a relevant definition that needs to be in the charter? Or is that something that somebody could go and look up elsewhere as a general definition?
Well, I think, one, if we are going to keep that in there,
Scott, your mic is off.
Doesn't that define the town manager? I mean, if the town manager is talked in the charter, isn't it?
Yeah,
Manager.
but I think they're trying to delineate the difference between administration and management. And I don't know that that's really needed.
Ed, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you were cut off for some reason.
Sorry. So what I was saying was that one, this is essentially doubling up two terms for definition in one box, that they need to be split apart. Needs to be a definition of administration and then a definition of management if we choose to keep them both.
Right.
The word management appears in the charter 15 times. Administration is in there 12 times. It may not be a bad idea to have it in there just for clarity purposes. I know it seems obvious to us what these terms mean. But again, having been on the town council, I've seen some of the arguments of, well, what does this word mean? I mean, things get very, very silly at times. And the more we can clarify within the charter that this is what this word means, the better off we're going to be down the road.
I agree with Scott. If it's used that frequently in the charter, it should be defined. I also have a question. The purpose, is the charter one of our goals to make it understood by residents, or is this strictly for town administrators and volunteers to understand? Because if it is for general consumption, and those terms are used that frequently, I agree with Scott that they should be separate and the definition should be put in there.
Okay. So I think in terms of addressing the audience of the charter, I mean, it's for the town. So I think it should be readable and legible and understandable by anyone who looks at it. But I guess the challenge is, where do you draw the line on some of these words and defining words? I mean, to me, management is a general word that most people understand what management is, but maybe not. But there are other words in there. I mean, how do you, what kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Criteria. What kind of criteria do we put or decide on whether a word should be defined or not? Is it the number of times it's in the charter? Is it anything over so many times that we define it here in the definitions, or?
Maybe if it dictates a function, or we could just, as it comes up, we can discuss it because that allows us all to gain an understanding of how we process information, we think about things. So maybe, and we're doing a double vote. So at this time, at least personally, it's difficult for me to determine where we draw the line, in the sand, because we're just starting. And
Right.
maybe if we find that there's a lot that's coming up and we're like, okay, is this really necessary? Maybe we revisit that question again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the Rules and Procedure Committee left it out. So they took the position, I guess, where, putting some of these other definitions was not needed.
I don't think, I think they keep them separate and have them in there, because not everybody necessarily understands the difference between administration and management. And there is a difference.
Yeah.
And it's in this charter to, talking about that a lot. I think that's important. What's a couple more lines, have it in there separate, administration definition and management's definition. That's my opinion.
Okay. Anyone else have an opinion?
Trying to get myself unmuted there. My concern is with the way the terms are defined. So management, it can mean the managers themselves. It can be a noun or a verb.
Right here it's defined as a noun.
Right. And if you actually read through the charter, it's used as a verb several times.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, at a minimum, I think we should just strike management definition entirely. I think you can derive it from the context, what is meant. And, we don't need to really clutter the charter with a bunch of terms that are commonly known.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm leading, Scott. I mean, I do believe these are very common terms. I mean, if somebody is confused about what they mean, I mean, you could just Google it, or you could just look in a dictionary or something, but they're not charter specific terms. Could they help clarify things for people? Possibly, yeah. But I also think it's important to keep the charter clear and concise as well.
So will we be removing that term from the body of the charter as well as the definition?
No.
No, just the definition.
So if the way to do it, right, take the word, right, have the definition of it, and then read that definition in lieu of the word in every spot in the charter. And if it makes sense, do it. But if not, you can't do a one-size-fits-all definition like that.
Right, and that's what Scott was pointing at, that management's used as a noun and a verb.
Exactly.
So we don't want to define it twice.
And there is the preamble about use context, right? So I say
Yeah.
strike it.
Okay, if somebody wants to make a motion to strike that particular definition, or we just say, I mean, we're using both documents here, so we can say that we agree with the Rules and Procedures Committee to leave that definition out.
Definition of management and administration, or okay,
Both,
so it's-
administration and management, yeah.
definition
Yeah.
you want.
I'll go ahead. Scott Pitta, move to strike administration versus management from the definitions in accordance with or similar to the Rules and Procedures Committee document from 2017.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Josh, roll call?
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
No.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
No,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
That was 5-2, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item is administrative code. And the definition is the same between the CRC and the Rules and Procedures Committee document, with the exception that the Rules and Procedure Committee capitalized the word town with a T, and they capitalized charter with a C. Is that correct?
I, Scott Pitta, move to adopt the Rules and Procedures Committee version of this definition.
I second.
Sorry, you broke up there, Scott. What? Can you just finish that motion?
Say again.
Would you mind just finishing that motion? You broke up.
I move to adopt the Rules and Procedures Committee version of the Administrative Code definition.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I, Steve Purcell, second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I had a question. Should administrative code be capitalized as well as state law? At least the state.
Where are you saying should it be capitalized? On
In the
left?
definition on the right, third line down, at least the version I wrote in mine, so I don't know if it's bumped everything. It said the administrative code shall state the mode of selection. So I was wondering if administrative code should be capitalized
Yeah, well,
because it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
yeah, It's capitalized further down.
It is capitalized further down. It is in the middle there. So I think that's a good pickup, Leone. So the
And
question,
it's state, yeah, sorry.
yeah. I don't really have an opinion on that, whether it's capitalized or not capitalized. I mean, I see it further down under department head. It's capitalized there. I don't think it hurts anything to capitalize it. So if we want to include, Scott, if you want to include that in your motion.
I was just pulling up the Associated Press style guide, trying to figure out what is, because there are times when it's not capitalized.
When you're identifying the term, are both words going to be capitalized? Because in most of them, the second word is capitalized, but in others, the second word is lowercase. And I think it's just whoever typed it up didn't hold shift.
So the word state is capitalized when you're referring to a governmental body. So, for example, if the state of Massachusetts files a motion in court, you know, if it's a governmental body that's doing something, but if you're simply referring to the state of Massachusetts, it's not capitalized. So I guess in this case,
So when it says
referring to a governmental
applicable
body.
when it says applicable state law, that would be lowercase then.
So that would be lowercase. That's
Yeah.
according to the Associated Press.
But we're talking about administrative code, right?
But I was highlighting both. So the state seems it's being used appropriately, and so it should be lowercase. Administrative code is what we're talking about, but it doesn't sound like it doesn't matter here and there. But as I'm reading it and they've changed charter to capitalize that, I was wondering, okay, is that important to make sure that the things that should be capitalized are indeed capitalized?
Yeah.
Because it's capitalized in one spot, not the other, and half capitalized on the
Right.
the words that you want to have the definition for.
And
Yeah.
it is the title of the document. So there is a publication from the town that is the administrative code. So if we look at it as the title of a publication,
Yeah.
then it should, both of those, administrative and code, should be capitalized.
Agreed.
So then we need to capitalize code under term as well as
In the body.
throughout the definition.
So why don't there be two motions here? We'll vote on Scott's motion to utilize the Rules and Procedures Committee version, which he's already motioned and said that's been seconded, and then we'll make another motion to capitalize state and administrative code throughout the charter.
Agreed.
Okay, so we have a motion standing that Scott made, and I think Darren seconded.
I did, Purcell.
So Josh, can you just repeat that motion again?
Yep. Scott motion to adopt the Rules and Procedures Committee version on administrative code definition. Steve seconded the motion.
Oh, Steve did? Okay, sorry. Okay, a roll call on that, please.
Ed,
Yes.
Leone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, great, thank you. Now we need a motion that says we're going to capitalize administrative code throughout the charter. And I guess we don't, what about state? Do we want to address state or not?
For this one, we just leave it alone.
Okay. Okay, so just administrative code. Somebody make a motion on that?
Scott,
I-
did I make that motion?
I second. I, Claire Minville, second it.
Okay, any discussion? That clear to you, Josh?
Yep.
Okay, roll call?
Ed,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you. All right, there are two, the next two items in the CRC document were adds that they put in, which the Rules and Procedures Committee did not put in. The first one is appointive administrative officer. And the second one is advisory committee, example, ad hoc committee. Want to have any discussion around the first one, appointive administrative officer? I'm not sure that term is actually used in the charter. To be honest with you, I did not do a word search on it. If anybody has that ability now and you want to try it, but I think it's there to, I mean, it really is defining what the town manager, a function that the town manager has.
It's an administrative officer, right?
But we don't have a person in our town with that title.
Ed, that's used in section 4.3 under town manager.
Right, it's a function that he performs, but it's not a title that he holds.
Well, it says the town manager shall be the chief administrative officer of the town in section 4.2.
Right, that's a chief administrative officer.
Okay.
This says appointive administrative officer. And if you read the definition, it talks about, you know, having the authority or the ability to appoint people within the town government. I just think, I mean, look at the definition itself. It's just so wordy. There's just so much in there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think it needs to be in. I think less is more.
I mean, they also, if you look further down, they do define chief administrative officer. So that is in there as well. I just don't see the benefit of having this in here. If one of the roles and responsibilities of town manager is to be the key appointive function, then that's already described in the charter. That under the section for the town manager, when it describes the roles and responsibilities of the town manager. So I would.
It looks like this was put in. It looks like the term was put in, and then they added a section 4.3a under the old charter review committee. It says the appointive administrative officers of the town shall be the town assessor, town attorney, chief of police, fire chief, etc. And I'm not really sure the purpose for that paragraph. You know, what the logic and reasoning was there, but I agree with you. It's very wordy, and it seems to, I don't know, it seems to affirm the way we already do things.
Yeah. I actually think it adds a level of confusion to me anyways, when I read this.
I read it and I get confused reading it.
All right, well, is anybody willing to make a motion to remove this or to adopt, again, to same motion that Scott made earlier, which would be to utilize the rules and procedure view on this?
I think we should just keep using Scott to make the motions.
Come on, Scott.
All right.
Keep it easy for Josh.
Yeah, I Scott Pitta, move to adopt the Rules and Procedures Committee version that removes a point of administrative officer from definitions. Or excludes, doesn't remove it, it excludes.
Excludes it. Yeah, okay.
I think
Second?
so. Second.
Okay, Steve seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Josh, roll call?
Ed,
Yes?
Leone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you all. The next definition they have in there is advisory committee. Example, ad hoc committee. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think I'm under the same assumption, like, I don't think it's needed.
Can somebody go on mute, this background information? Thank you. Steve, you're saying what?
I just think that the advisory committee, I don't think that that's a needed term, similar to the rules and procedures.
Okay, anyone else? Do you think it's clear, would be clear to most people what an advisory committee is or does?
I like the fact that it's in there because I wouldn't be, it's not a common term that I'm familiar with and would be looking to use the definition to help clarify that.
Okay. Anyone else?
So it's only one sentence in this document?
I'm
Town
sorry,
manager.
Darren.
Looks like it's only in one sentence in the document.
Okay,
And it
where?
seems, says the town manager shall form a citizens advisory committee to help in evaluating and selecting those individuals for appointment. I mean, it's,
It's on page 22, line 213.
does it say advisory committee?
yes.
It does.
I actually kind of agree with Leone on this one. I don't know why, but I think the definition that they put in here helps to clarify for anyone, even though it's only used once. I kind of like the definition, and I just think it adds some value, but that's just my opinion.
I agree.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion whether we keep this or remove it?
I,
Scott
Janet,
Penney.
motion to keep the charter review version of advisory committee definition. Does that
I,
make
Scott
sense?
Pitta, second that.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Was that supposed to be rules and procedures committee version?
No,
It-
we're gonna adopt the definition that's in the CRC version
Just wanted to double check.
for advisory committee. Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion?
I just wanted clarification. It says town officer here. Is that an important term? Should that be town manager, or is town officer a general term for anyone that's working on behalf of the town in a leadership role?
The way I read that, Cleone, is the latter. So it's anyone, it's not necessarily the town manager, it's anyone in official position. Because ad hoc committees can fall under anybody. It doesn't have to be just the town manager. It can be a department head, or it can be, anyone, so. Does that help?
It does. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready for a roll call. Josh, on this one?
Sure. Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Cleone, you're on mute.
Looks like she's actually frozen. Oh. Looks like she might be back.
Are you, did Cleone drop?
He's here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, it was yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
No.
Janet,
Yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thanks, Josh. We're keeping you busy tonight, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, the next item is the definition for the word board, which the CRC has and the rules of procedures does not. They define what the word board means, and they reference the three boards that are identified in the charter: Board of Trustees, the Board of Registrars, and the Board of Assessors. Any opinions on whether board needs to be in there or not?
I like the fact that it's there again for the same reason, providing clarification for those who are not familiar with the town government and the differences between boards, committees, and because those are the very things that I got tripped up on. So,
Okay. Thank you, Cleone. Anyone else?
I don't think that it needs to be in there.
Okay, you think it's too,
It's just too much. Like, yeah, I just think, like I said earlier, less is more. The more we fill it with definitions, the more people are just gonna breeze through it. They're just gonna be like, okay, I don't need to read. I'm not gonna read all these definitions. But if
Mhm.
there's less, people would be more apt to maybe skim through them and just say, okay, wait, so what's really important here?
Okay. So you think most people would know what a board is?
I think so. Yeah.
but what's the
And
And
purpose
if
of that?
not, like they can, it's 2020, they can pull up the internet and, all right, what is a board in
Yep.
in a legal document? What is a board referring to? What's a
but in this case, boards can mean different things with different organizations. And I like the fact that for this town, a board is the library, registrar, et cetera. So I hear what you're saying. It's just that board can be general. I have a board for my nonprofit, and that's very different roles than the board would be for the town.
Yeah. And in our case, they do point out that a board can be either elected or appointed. And out of those three boards, we do have some, several that are appointed and one that's elected, I believe, or two that are elected. So there is I think there's some added value just having this, just because of the way it's defined and the relevance. If it was just a generic definition of the word board, Steve, I would agree with you. I think we should leave it out. But I think this provides additional clarification. That's my opinion. So
And
would someone like to make a motion to either keep or remove?
Go ahead, Janet.
you sure? I motion to keep, include the board definition that's in the
CRC.
charter review.
Yeah, the 2014 CRC document. Yep. Okay, is there a second on that?
Scott Pitta will second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
I would just say that, big picture, Steve, I agree with you. We should be trimming this down. But so much of the work of this town is done by boards, committees, and commissions. I think those three are absolutely vital, and we have to have those definitions in.
Yeah, again, this gets back to the criteria. How do we determine if something's should stay or not stay? And I think it's very subjective, but in this case, I think this is a good case for keeping it in there. Okay, well, so we have the motion and it's seconded. Any further discussion? Thank you for that, Scott. And Josh, roll call?
Ed,
Yes.
Leonie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
No,
Janet,
Yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay. Next item is charter, and that is found in both documents with the same definition. So I'm assuming that we're okay with that.
I wanted to ask, is it permissible to add a link where you see the article? Is that worth mentioning that a link should be provided in the charter? Most people are going to be reviewing this electronically so that it could be easy for them to see what this article is and how to find it. So I wanted to suggest that be a link.
So are you suggesting a link to the article of the state amendment to the Constitution? Is that what you're?
Yes. Anytime they're referencing something that's not within the charter and we deem it to be important, I'd like to propose that it be linked to that document.
Okay.
The only thing I would say on that is not always ADA compliant.
And how will we know that? Would the lawyer be able to tell us that?
So it has to do with whether or not it's done with the right version for a text reader. It just gets complicated. That's just an FYI.
Plus, if you put a link, the document, it could move, so a link could be to nothing. It might not be there when somebody's viewing the document.
You're saying the link could change over time.
Right. It may not be valid after when they update the website or something.
Mm-hmm. I like the
So
intent.
then they won't be they won't be any less informed with a broken link than no link at all.
Mhm. Okay.
Leonie, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If it becomes a problem with the ADA compliance issue, and Tom, you can let me know if I'm off base here, but could we do a references page? Similar to, we have a definitions page, have a page of references that would contain all of those things that get referenced in the charter with links or web addresses. And then that would be a lot easier to update as those pages,
Yes.
if the state's website changes, then to Darren's point, we can just update the reference page.
So from an ADA perspective, yeah, that would be fine because in the reference page, it would spell out like the http:// blah, 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 versus just have the word with the blue line under it, for lack of a better term, like the hyperlink in the document, because then a text reader could read that whole thing out.
oh, I thought she was actually referring to putting the hyperlink at the end of the sentence. So like after Massachusetts period, hit return, and then the HTTP link would be there spelt out and actually hyperlinked.
Is that what you were intending, Cleone?
I'm not sure what Steve said. Basically, like how I do an email right now, it's that if you right click, you can see the web address, right? But you don't have to then, I'm trying to avoid having citizens or anybody do a Google search on article, ... It should be whether a link within the document or at the end. So I do like what Scott is saying, and I appreciate what Tom said about that. If there's a reader, they won't be able to pick up that this is a link. So I think what Scott mentioned addresses both the concerns about it being accessible for all people using a reader and not having people do a Google search as to what is this article or the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it would be beneficial to have a link in there to that document, but I think that the town should host that document on their own servers as wherever they host this this charter. So that way they're in the same location or the same folder, but they would just, and then you would, just like you're writing this sentence here, you just hit enter and then the next line would read the actual URL. and not the article highlighted in blue and it just links to something. So to be ADA compliant, it's actually written out as the URL.
So in terms of whether or not the town, would be willing to host, or have copies of external documents stored on the town servers or whatever, I don't know whether they would do that. So that's a question we'd have to ask. But I think what we've been discussing here is a sort of a separate, totally independent recommendation that we have as a committee. And that is for any reference to any external document in the charter, whether it's this one here or anything else throughout the whole charter, we want to have an external link or reference to that source somewhere in the charter. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes.
So we either put a reference at the end in some sort of a footnote section or resource section at the end, or we actually embed the links within the document. However we decide to do it, but we're saying that we would like to have all external documents accessible through from within the charter. So that's a unique recommendation that we would make, and if somebody wants to make a motion, we can vote on that right now.
I was trying to capture what you just said, so I'm going to try. I, Cleone Mainville, motion that all external documents that are referenced in the charter is provided a link or the web address included in the charter.
Yep. Okay.
Is that as a reference page? Or is it going to be in the?
I don't think we're making that determination now, Janet. I think what we're just saying is it needs to be identified somewhere in the document.
Oh, okay. Second. Hi, Janet, second.
Okay. Josh, are you clear on the motion?
Yeah, did you want me to read it back?
Sure.
Cleone motion that all external documents that are references in the charter are provide a link or web address in the charter. Does that sound right?
Yep. Good enough. Okay. Any further discussion?
My only last thought is that the charter is a long-standing document. I'm not sure that who would be updating the links and the references to appropriate web addresses for the next 10 years. Like this, the document we're looking at now is 10 years old. I don't think the same web addresses existed 10 years ago that do now.
A good point of reference, because the charter cannot be changed by anybody except the town council putting through the citizens have to vote on any changes. So if they want to change a web address in the charter, it can't be changed without a vote by the citizens.
I mean, I like Cleone's idea. Maybe a better way to get that resolution is to have a requirement that the town manager maintains an archive of related documents available upon request for the town charter.
Because so I'm just kind of talking it out here. So these documents, because they are referenced, right? They're not, the link may change, but like what Tom is saying, because they're referenced, they have to continue to be in existence. And so I think that is the solution, right? Because as is now, the town should maintain that article in the Constitution because it is referenced for 10 years in our charter. And to put it in there and folks not be able to access that information, then folks are not even well informed to consume the information in the charter. So I do like that because then we have the control of that information within the town because it is in our charter and they should be able to have that accessible to citizens as well as employees or heads of department so that they can understand what it says. Otherwise, the definition of what the charter is incomplete because here it says it may, methods provided under this article. And if that article, there's nowhere for us to find it, then this definition is incomplete and folks can't really use it in a meaningful way.
So in this particular case, we're talking about the Massachusetts state constitution, which doesn't change very frequently. So you're not going to have any issues with that particular link, probably. But if there are other documents that are referenced that are more fluid, that might change once every couple of years or something happens, then there could be an issue. I don't think the town is going to have the wherewithal or the resources to keep copies, again, of all these external documents for the citizens. I mean, in the day and age that we live right now, you use Google. You just do your own search and you find it. I mean, but that said, I think the motion that was made makes a lot of sense. We're going to vote on it here unless, Leone, you want to withdraw the motion, but I think it makes sense to have a reference somewhere in the charter for every external document that's mentioned.
I think that if we're going to put that into the document, it needs to be right there with it.
Yeah. Rather than be at the end in a reference page or something.
Yeah.
What if we did like a footnote that would then reference the reference page? That way we keep the clean document, but it shows people where to go. And on the electronic format, could we link the footnote where you click on that and it just brings you straight to the reference, that section of the reference page?
Mm-hmm. Maybe. So now we're talking about the hows of actually doing this. And I think when we sit with the town attorney and go through some of these things with him, he'll be able to tell us more specifically what can and can't be done and how it would be done. So I would suggest we take the vote. This is our desire. This is what we want to see happen. We want citizens to be able to read the charter and have easy, quick access to some external documents. How to make that happen is sort of a different discussion, right?
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay, so with the motion on the table for a vote, Josh, let's do the roll call on this.
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Darren. Darren, you're muted.
No.
Scott,
Yes.
thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay. Thank you. All right, now we go back to the CRC document where they have defined Chief Administrative Officer. I'm not sure where they got this definition. Politically and as used in constitutional law, an officer of the executive department of government. I mean, Chief Administrative Officer is also used in business. It's not just used in government. So I don't know I necessarily agree with that definition, but so the first question is, do we need to define Chief Administrative Officer? Since that is sort of the, well, the town manager serves as the Chief Administrative Officer, right? Darren, didn't you find that, or somebody found that in the charter?
It's in there. Yeah.
It's referenced once.
Okay. Anybody have any feelings on that one? Does that help to provide additional clarity that,
Well, I think I know why this was in here. And this goes to Clarkson v. Bridgewater. And this was a point of contention between some members of the town council
Right.
and Troy Clarkson, who was the town manager, as far as what the duties and responsibilities of the town manager were. That definition was clarified by the judgment from the court. There was a declaratory judgment that was issued that really provided the definition. So I'm not sure. This would have to be a discussion, I think, with the town attorney as to if there's a judgment from the court that says what that means, can we go in and add a different definition and say it means something different?
Yeah. I mean, this definition doesn't even really make sense to me.
I had the same thought.
An officer of the executive department of government, that really doesn't say anything about the position. It just says, you know, they're in an executive department of government, but I don't know. So the two questions, one is, do we need a definition for this position? And do we agree with the definition that's provided? Anyone have any feelings either way or want to make a motion on this?
I'll share my feelings. I don't know how to articulate the motion. I like the fact that this is defined, and I agree with both you and Scott that the definition isn't descriptive enough for me as a citizen to understand what this really means. So I would be looking to have a better definition and to keep this, improve the definition and keep it.
Okay. Anyone else have comments on this? I mean, my opinion is if it caused confusion 10 years ago and we were involved in litigation and stuff in the town, and Scott was right, the courts did issue a ruling on it. But if it provides clarity for any future issues that might come up, then maybe it makes sense to have it in there. Maybe we could actually get the definition, Scott, that was used by the courts back then. Just put them in there.
I'm trying to search my documents to see if I have it. That was like 4 laptops ago.
Oh, okay.
I don't know which hard drive that's on.
If not, I mean, I'm sure we can find a better definition than what's here. So,
Yes.
Okay, so Cleone, I think you articulated that very well. I don't think you did it in a motion though, did you?
No, I did not. So I, Cleone Mainville, motion that we keep the definition, keep the definition. I don't know how to articulate that because it's like.
You want to keep the definition for chief administrative officer, but you want to modify the definition as provided by the CRC.
I, Cleone Mainville, would like to propose that we keep the definition of chief administrative officer as outlined in the 2014 CRC review, but modify it to be a more descriptive definition.
Okay, well said. And we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Janet. Any further discussion? I guess one thing that we're gonna, I'd like to have somebody volunteer to get a good definition of this that we can discuss maybe at our next meeting. Somebody be willing to do that. So Josh, we'll take a roll call.
Can I just run this motion back just to make sure I captured everything? So Cleone motion to keep the definition of chief administration officer as outlined in the 2014 CRC review, but improve on the definition.
Yes.
Steve?
We're voting to keep it without knowing what the definition is gonna be?
Correct. We're going to modify the definition after the fact. We're going to keep it in the list of definitions. So we're not going to remove it. We're going to keep it in there, but we're going to modify the definition at a future date. Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Josh?
Ed,
Yes.
Leonie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
No.
Janet,
Yes,
Aaron,
No.
Scott,
Yes.
thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay. Is there anyone willing to provide an updated definition of chief administrative officer?
I'll take a shot at it.
Thank you. I'm sure it'll be a nice, clear legal definition, Scott.
We'll see what we can do. I'm trying to get a copy of Clarkson v. Bridgewater. That'll be my starting point.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, next one was commission. Actually, let's go back. I'm trying to do this in alphabetical order. So if I look over at the rules and procedures document, they have defined city. And it says the body politic and corporate called the town of Bridgewater in this charter. I'm not sure why you need to define city. I mean, we are a town, but in the eyes of the state, we're actually a city because we have a charter. Maybe that's what they're trying to clarify here.
And for that reason, what you articulated, I think it should stay, because that can be confusing. We are a town of Bridgewater, but if we're seen as a city and it's being referenced as a city throughout the document, then that clarification is helpful.
Yeah, so we actually have a city form of government, which is why that's so. Okay, good comment, Cleone. Anyone else? How do you feel about keeping city in there with the current definition? All right, well, anyone willing to make a motion on this? Cleone, do you want to make a motion?
I, Cleone Mainville, motion to keep the definition of city as articulated in the 2014 CRC review.
No, that would be in the 2017 RMP
Oh,
document.
oops,
That's okay.
RMP.
Yep. Okay, and is there a second on that?
Steve Purcell second that.
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion? Josh, roll call?
Ed,
Yes.
Leonie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one I see is on the CRC document. They have added the word commission. And for the life of me, I don't know where they got this definition, but it's very confusing to me. Looks like it's out of a legal textbook. A warrant or authority or letters of patent issuing from the government. I mean, I like the last sentence. A commission is an independent agency given responsibility for the planning, supervision, and coordination of what, though? Just says, I don't know. And then they've defined committee below it. So I guess they're trying to differentiate maybe the difference between a committee and a commission.
Doesn't make sense.
It looks like there are differences, though. So is it important enough to articulate that here or not?
I think so, because under multiple member body or organization, it comes up as, in that definition, it comes up to support a different definition. And a quick word search shows it pops up about 12 times.
Yeah, I think a commission, Scott, you may know more about this than I do, but I think a commission is a more of a formal group of people. I know there is a charter review commission. We're not a commission because we're not elected, or we're not, there's something, we're actually a committee. But a commission has a different role and a different responsibility, and I think a legal requirement for a commission to do certain things. But so maybe the reason they put it in here is just to clarify and to minimize any confusion.
What is it used at in the document?
You looking up commission, Steve?
Yeah, I'm just reading the sentences that it's used in. It's used 24 times throughout the CRC document. But
Okay.
the definition, I think, is fine once you break it down. It's like if you think about like a commission, like a Navy commission or an Army commission, a commissioned officer, like that first sentence is pretty spot on. In that regard, the last one is really unneeded.
Okay.
The warrant, it's an authority given to an individual to exercise a certain authority or duty.
But I think what's different between it and a committee is it's official from the government.
Right.
So there's some sort of maybe a legal binding or something here where it's an official authorization to do something, where a committee is more just you're appointed to do something, like, you know, we're an appointed committee. So, but we're not legally bound in the same way a commission would be bound. And we don't necessarily have legal authority to do anything, where commission might have some specific authority.
They do.
Okay. So then my opinion is I think it makes sense to have these both in there. If they're both used throughout the charter, and if there's some confusion about it, then this would be the place to go to clarify that confusion.
But I don't like that sentence where it says a commission is an independent agency given responsibility.
Well, that implies that they don't report to anybody, right?
Essentially, the difference between the two, between the commission and the committee, is that the commission is entrusted with the authority. Let's say the town manager has authority to do whatever. They're essentially being delegated that authority officially, and they receive that commission to select the new police chief or whatever it is that the town manager or the town council's job would be. They take that section of their authority, they carve it out, and they say, we're going to give this to you. That's your commission. The committee is more of a advisory board. And I think that's really the difference between the two here.
Okay. Okay,
The
So-
big question is, does this definition capture that?
Right. And so, Scott, what do you think of that last sentence where it really limits? It says a commission is an independent agency given responsibility for basically saying that it can plan, supervise, and coordinate, but it's not really exercising, it's not saying anything about exercising a real authority.
Uh, yeah, see, a commission would have to have some sort of authority to act. I'm thinking like the Securities and Exchange Commission, for example. I mean, that's a commission that is given authority, and they have they can act independently.
Mhm.
So I think that's another
Hmm.
another definition that really needs to be refined.
okay, all right, so why don't we'll take 2 votes on that one. A vote to keep commission in and then a vote to revise or update the definition. So anyone want to make a motion to just keep the definition in the list?
I, Darren Boston, make the motion to keep the definition of commission in the list.
Okay, second?
I clearly Mainville second.
Okay, any further discussion? Josh, roll call?
Ed,
Yes.
Peony,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody want to take a crack at, well, do we want to vote on, well, I guess we don't want, we're going to vote on a new definition at some point. So anybody willing to revise the commission definition?
I'm already in there doing other definitions. I might as well take that one.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, so that'll be an update for a future meeting to update that one. Committee. Person or group of persons elected or appointed to perform some service or function as to investigate, report on, or act upon a particular matter. That seems to be a pretty clear definition.
I have
Anyone
no
want,
problem with it.
okay, want to make a motion to keep the committee definition as stated in the 2014 CRC document?
I, Janet, motion to keep the committee definition that's in the CRC 2014 charter document.
Thank you, Janet. Any seconds?
And Darren Boston will second that motion.
Thank you, Darren. Any discussion? Okay, Josh, roll call?
Ed,
Yes.
Peony. Janet,
Yes.
Tom. Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you, Josh. By the way, thank you for you guys that are searching the document as we're going through this. It is very helpful to know how many times something is used. Appreciate that. All right, the next one I see is conflict of interest. There's a definition of that, and I think that's referenced probably in the prohibitions area. One of the sections of the charter where they talk about, campaign finance, things like that or whatever. Do you think conflict of interest is needed, or do you think that's pretty much well known what that is?
I think that,
I'm sorry, Steve, you cut out.
I said, I think that can be removed.
Okay. the circumstance of a public office holder, business executive, or the like, whose personal interest might benefit from his or her official actions or influence. That seems like it's right out of the dictionary.
Yeah. And it's really no different than anybody else going in. If it's really like causing somebody a heartache of, I just really don't understand what this means in a sentence, they could easily just go to Google and look that up.
Yep. Okay. Anyone else have any comments on that?
I agree with Steve because it seems to already be defined under section 9-1. It's on, and it pretty much spells it out already there.
Great. Thanks for finding that, Cleone. Okay, then let's take a motion to remove the conflict of interest definition or to not use it from the 2014 CRC.
I, Steve Purcell, move to remove conflict of interest from CRC recommendations.
Okay, is there a second?
Second the motion. Darren Boston, second the motion.
Thank you, Darren. Any further discussion?
Do we need to specifically say from the definition versus from the CRC? I guess I need to have that reread to make sure that it's saying what I'd like to vote it to say, that it's just removed from the definition.
Well, I think what we're saying is we're not going to use it, right? We're just saying we're not going to adopt or we're not going to utilize this definition in our recommendations. When you say remove it,
Okay.
we're not actually removing it from the document. So Josh, can you read that back and amend them? Maybe we can reword that so we know what we're voting on.
Out of the
Yeah, I was going to ask on that. So I'll just start it. Steve, motion to remove the conflict of interest definition from the charter. So should that be should that ending be amended to something else?
So it's not in the charter, so we don't want to say remove it from the charter. What we want to say is
remove the definition.
we want to say we want to vote to not use. We want to vote to not use the conflict of interest definition as stated in the 2014 CRC recommendations.
So would it, instead of exclude?
Yeah, that's good. Good word.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I'll read it back to you. All right, so I have Steve motion to exclude the conflict of interest definition as stated in the 2014 Charter Review Committee review.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm sorry, who seconded that motion?
Daryl Boston.
Thanks,
Darren Boston, sorry.
I'm used to it.
Okay, ready for any further discussion? All right, Josh, roll call.
Ed?
Yes.
Ed, before we do that, one quick question. As far as the conflict of interest, I know you can Google it or it seems common sense, but there is a state-specific conflict of interest law and that applies to municipalities. We may want to make reference to that within the definition. You know, maybe something just conflict of interest is defined as, or as defined by the State Ethics Commission.
Okay, we could either do that or we could add something in the charter. Somebody, it was a Cleone mentioned where it is in the charter. We could actually put that in the charter where it's referenced. We could say as you know, or in conjunction with you know, the state conflict of interest statute.
That's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make sure we have, you know, this is one of those areas where there is a very specific definition for what is a conflict of interest and what is not.
Yeah.
And, you know, what the average person may think is a conflict of interest under the statute usually is not.
Right.
So,
Okay, so I don't think that changes the motion. But what we'll have to do is take notes. So when we actually get to that section of the charter, we'll make an update in that section to reference what you just said.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Scott. That was good. Josh, ready for a roll?
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Karen,
Yes,
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
And
Thank you.
Scott, that last sentence actually under section 9.1 says insofar as permissible under state law.
So we could actually expand on that
That works.
and mention what law it is or something. Did you hear that, Scott?
I did. Sorry, having mute issues over here. I actually like it being a little bit more generic and vague as Steve read it,
Okay,
because then as the state law changes, we don't have to change the charter.
okay, good point. Thank you. All right, so it is now almost 8:45, 20 of 8:45. I definitely want to adjourn at 9 tonight. We've only made it through the Cs. You can see what a lengthy process this can be, but it's good. I mean, we're all learning through this and we're all making some good decisions. But we have another agenda item that I want to spend a couple of minutes on. So you guys, are you okay with it? You want to end at 9 or do you want to go over a little bit tonight, or what do you want to do?
I would like to end at 9. I stayed up until like 1 o'clock watching the elections last night. So I don't have much more to give.
I think most of us did, yeah. Okay, so we'll just have to pick this up at our next meeting then. So we'll start with, again, I'm going alphabetical. We'll start with department head as defined in the Rules and Procedure 2017 document. Okay, Josh, can you make note of that in the minutes?
Sorry, I was typing it. Yeah, you said the department head.
We're going to pick up with the department head definition that's contained in the 2017 Rules and R&P document.
Got it.
Okay, great. Okay, I know this is very tedious, and I think, going through the definitions is important. Once we actually start getting into the meat of the charter, things I think will move a little differently than what they are right now. So let me get back to the agenda here. Oops. I can find my agenda. Okay, so I sent you all a document today. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at it quickly, but I've come up with a draft timeline that gets us to May for dealing with all of the, sections of the charter. I can actually put it up on my screen share here. You all see that?
yes,
Okay, so between now and the end of the year, tonight included, we have 15 meetings. And that gets us through May 19th. Now, technically, I think we didn't start until the middle of June. We may, we don't have an exact date yet as to when we officially end, but I wanted to make sure that we utilized all of the meetings that we have between now and May. And that's 15 meetings. So after tonight, we'll have 14. So what I did was I listed every article here, and I figured we would need at least 2 meetings for each article at a minimum. Several of the articles probably require more than 2 meetings. I'm thinking of Article 6, for example, for the finance article is going to take more time. And I thought that we would be able to start Article 2 tonight, but we did not. So this means if we held to this schedule, we would be done by April 21st, which would leave us still 2 meetings in May
All right.
as spillover if we needed more time. So I think we need something like this to guide the work and to keep us, moving forward. If we don't have something like this, then we're not gonna, if somebody says, where are you gonna make your end date? We're not gonna know if we're gonna make it or not. This gives us a kind of a plan or a schedule to work by. And if we need to schedule additional meetings, I know, we've only agreed to have 2 meetings a month, but I think there's 2 months in here where we have 5 Wednesdays. So we're probably going to end up using those additional Wednesdays because we're going to need the time. I mean, you saw how quickly we moved tonight. So we may actually have to add additional meetings depending on how, quickly or slowly we move. So that was my initial thoughts on a timeline. I'm interested in hearing the committee's feelings, thoughts, any ideas you might have around how we could approach this.
I think this is a great start. It kind of lays it out and gives us guidelines, little bumpers to have, and hopefully we can keep the course.
Okay. If we were able to utilize this schedule, the plan would be by the end of the year to be done with Article 4. So the end of the year is basically 3 more meetings, right? November 18th.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4.
Not counting tonight, right? Because tonight's almost over. So we have the 18th, December 2nd, 16th, and December 30th. You're right. We've, is that 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have 4 more meetings to get through Article 4. Now we should be able to do that if we don't have many other agenda items. We dive in right at the beginning. We utilize the full 2 hours. If we have to spill over some nights, we will, but the first 4 articles aren't really that difficult. It's really Article 6 that we're going to need. And you can see I've given us at least 3 meetings on Article 6. So anyone else, your feelings on this?
I appreciate the timeline. I also appreciate your emails that gives us the documents and the reminders, like by this date, these are the things that need to be done. So I really appreciate it. And if we could continue to do that moving forward, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah, having the documents is very helpful.
Okay.
Not having to look for anything.
Yep. Great.
Yeah.
Did I send you guys the, I think I did, the document I got from the library trustees?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I did. That will be obviously included. So, okay, well then, if you think this is a good start, and obviously it's not cast in stone, we'll make adjustments as we need to, but, and as I said, we still have 2 meetings in May that we can utilize, but we also, at the end, are going to have to prepare a report, a presentation. And now in between this as well, we have some of these things we're going to package into a deliverable that hopefully we can, the citizens can vote on at the next election in April. That was the using the amendment process, right? So we are going to have to start thinking about, as we're going through all the articles, we're going to have to be pulling out stuff that we think can go through the amendment process as opposed to going through the special act.
And you make a good point. We have these articles being reviewed in sequence, chronological order, and they're not all important in that same order. So that's something we need to consider, that we may have to pull out 6 and bring it up earlier so that it is ready and packaged for vote in April.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
haven't considered reviewing the responses that we get back from the department heads.
Right. So you're right. There's a lot of other things that are factoring in here. Yeah. So it is not going to be just a total serial process. There's going to be other things that we're going to be doing at the same time that we're going through these articles. I mean, tonight was the first night. We needed to do this. We need to start getting into the meat of the charter. But at the same time, there's other things that have to be happening in parallel. So we may need another subcommittee to start looking at, for example, what things can we put in the amendments? Or we need to maybe have multiple agenda items. We spend half the meeting looking at articles and we spend the other half of the meeting doing something else. So I'll think about that a little bit more and try to put together, a plan in the agenda of the meetings that maximizes our time to get us to where we need to be. Okay. But as you can see, we've got a lot of work. So I appreciate everyone's flexibility and time. And again, if we need to add some additional meetings to keep things on target, I hope you will all consider doing that. We need to. All right, so could someone make a motion to adopt this timeline?
Do you want to think about Article 6, bringing it up beforehand, or are we, because once we vote on it, is this going to be stuck in stone with the dates?
I don't think so, Steve. I mean, I think we're doing it. What we're saying is we're agreeing that this is a stake in the ground for a timeline. We know that there are going to be changes to this timeline as things go on. We're going to make adjustments to it. Maybe what I can do is for the next meeting is have a revision of this timeline, which factors in the amendment process. So it sort of reprioritizes the way we look at the articles.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that the amendment process is going to take a higher priority than the special act process. And what I mean by that is if the majority of, say, the special act kinds of things fall in specific articles, then we would push those down on the priority list, because we know that the special act won't come until probably next year sometime. But we want to get the amendment process in, and I think we can do it by April of this year.
Yeah, so I would, let's wait though until next time,
Okay,
and then we can.
okay,
discuss.
fair enough. So everyone understand what Steve said? So I'll take as long as you guys kind of agree with the basic format of this, I'll take another look at this to reprioritize the articles based on the amendment process. Is that okay?
And Ed, if Tom did a really good job as to pulling out the common concerns of the citizens, can that be another layer that you look at? So if things that didn't get too much attention or comments, that would be something that would be put lower as well. Is there value in having that double lens when you're looking at priority?
It might be. I'd have to take a look at it to see. Tom, maybe you and I can talk offline.
That'll work.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
And you can kind of fill me in on what you've done there and yeah, because we want to definitely factor in the survey and the questionnaire feedback. And if some of those feedback items fall into the amendment process, we want to capture them there definitely. Is there some, well, maybe what we have to do is collectively as a group, go through that list of survey, feedback items and identify which are potential amendment versus special act.
I don't know if we have to do it as a group. Tom did a really good job as to summarizing it and presenting it. Is it a matter, you know what I mean? I think we've captured that already.
So if the town, when we make this presentation on the 21st, if the town council asks which of your survey
24th.
recommendations or feedback, which of those are you planning to put in the amendment process? Would we be able to do that? Answer that question?
At this very second, no. By then, yes.
Okay. So is that something, Tom, that the subcommittee should be doing, or you want to do yourself, or you want to do with me to identify those?
Honestly, I think you and I working on it might be more efficient, Ed.
Okay,
But I don't know if that violates any open meeting, anything.
no, it doesn't. No, because we can, it's just two of us. We can do that.
Not to exclude you, Steve and Cleone. You're more than welcome to join the party. However,
I'm perfectly okay with that plan.
Okay, so Tom, we'll need to do that as part of my review of this timeline. So for the next meeting on the 18th, we'll have this revision made, and that will include a view of the survey feedback, right?
yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so we don't need to vote on this now. We'll take a vote on this on the 18th then. All right, let me stop sharing. Okay, so that's it for new business. Public comment. I did see one person on earlier who has since left. So I don't think we have anyone here that's going to speak. So any new action items for our next meeting? I guess the only thing here would be to review the presentation that we're going to deliver on the 21st. So we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes to go through that at our next meeting.
Ed, can I make a recommendation in an effort to save those 10 or 15 minutes and keep us on track? If I send it out to everybody, if anybody wants to talk about it at the next meeting, we can. If not, we would just have a quick motion to approve it and go.
Okay,
I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but
Sounds good.
I'm sorry, sending
I
out,
agree.
I couldn't hear. Was sending out what?
the presentation that I'm going to make, I will make it happen. The presentation I will be making to the town council on the 21st
24th?
or whatever. I will send that to the group. It's a slide deck. If someone wants to talk about it at the next meeting, we can do that. If not, we can have a quick motion and take up 2 minutes instead of 15.
Okay,
yeah, I think that's good, Tom. We can agree to that. So you'll send it out. Please review and be prepared to vote on this at our next meeting.
Y'all will have it in your inbox in like 45 seconds.
Oh, jeez. You're so efficient, Tom. Love it.
Hey,
Okay,
here's the
so
proof.
no other action items at this point for next meeting. We're going to pick up on the charter review. And we may even have some questionnaires that I can share with you too. That might be on the agenda. We'll see how that works. Hopefully I'll get all those back by then. And again, our next meeting is on the 18th at 7 PM. So, all right, I have 9:01. Sorry, we went over by a minute. Take a motion to adjourn.
As Steve, motion to adjourn.
I,
Scott,
Cleary Means, I'll second that.
All right, very good. Josh, roll call?
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott.
yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved and the meeting is adjourned.
Great. Thanks, Josh, for your time
All right,
tonight.
everyone.
Appreciate it.